It is Friday, May 29th. Let's talk PlayStation. We are getting so close to an official showcase of PlayStation 5 games, but before we get into all that, as always, we'll go over our PlayStation Plus reminder, the May games that are currently available, City Skylines and Farming Simulator 2019. You don't have much time left. The June titles have been announced in a very strange fashion. First, it was Call of Duty World War II, which is available right now on the store, so some crossover into May. But then we also recently learned the other game is Star Wars Battlefront 2, and that won't be available until June 2nd, so not really sure why they approached it that way, but solid month, very good games, although a cardinal sin here, I always say, don't offer the same genre between these two titles, although there might be a reason for these two specific games being offered. We'll get to that later in the show. But I want to start off with PS4 firmware 7.51. Yes, very exciting stuff, I know. It's for system improvement, software stability. As of right now, it's not mandatory, but usually when I say that, by the time this is uploaded, it's mandatory for all PSN users. Also, just want to quickly point out that if you've been after the DualShock 4 back button attachment that's been out of stock for, months now, clearly Sony underestimated the demand of this thing, and then the virus didn't help manufacturing, but they did confirm that this coming week, new shipments will be hitting the US, so check multiple retailers, PlayStation.com throughout this coming week. I'm sure Monday most of this will go live, but if you've been after this thing, you might want to grab it soon. Now, this past week over on the PlayStation blog, Sony announced an open tournament that will be available for PlayStation 4 players starting June 1st with a number of games available. I remember they did this, I think, last year or a few years ago, but cash prizes are up for grabs, exclusive avatars, themes, things like that. So a lot more games are going to be available this time around. So there's tournaments for Modern Warfare, FIFA 20, Mortal Kombat 11, Warface, NBA 2K20, Soul Calibur 6, and Blaze Blue Cross Tag Battle. So a number of open tournaments will be available for people to jump in and play, and if you do come out on top, you could come away with some cash. We also learned this past week that for the Final Fantasy VII Remake, this game had the best first month US sales in Final Fantasy history, which is really impressive given the circumstance this game found itself in, where stores were closed. This was during a pandemic, not many discs were printed, and so it really is miraculous that we have this metric here. Although, if any Final Fantasy game was going to be able to beat this milestone, it would have been the Final Fantasy VII Remake. But otherwise, Square Enix and Sony, I'm sure, are quite pleased with the game's success. Now, on to a minor update for Dreams getting PlayStation VR support. I know a lot of people are eagerly looking forward to this because it will really open up the scope of the game here. But right now, closed beta underway in Europe. More specifically, if you're in Europe, you can still apply to be a tester for the PlayStation VR content and integration within Dreams, and they'll even compensate you. You'll send feedback to Media Molecule and whatnot, but very much so this entire process of making Dreams has been a back and forth between the players and Media Molecule, which is very important. So that PSVR content should be coming very soon. Now, with all of that out of the way, it's time to get to our major news story, starting off with The Last of Us Part 2 State of Play that was held on Wednesday. And, before even really getting into this, it seems very commonplace that Sony's not giving us a lot of notice for these events. This was announced Monday, show was on Wednesday, just like the Ghost of Tsushima State of Play, and then we know the PS5 stuff pretty much drops day of, although you would imagine the showcase that we're going to be talking about in a second here will get an announcement on Monday of it being on Wednesday. But we're jumping ahead here. The State of Play, I'm going to put a timestamp if you want to skip ahead to this news story, if you don't want to see any of the footage from it, just out of respect to people trying to avoid leaks or new footage. I know that is something people like to do. They like to go on media blackouts for games. I do that all the time if I'm really excited for a project. But either way, for this particular footage, pretty lengthy, right? About 24, 25 minutes, a lot of gameplay, which is good. That's always a criticism that the first game had. Of course, this game right now has gone through some heavy story leaks that has bummed out a lot of people. So this is one that really focused on gameplay aspects of The Last of Us. And so we saw, nothing really new. We've heard these things, but we get to see them in practice, which I think made the gameplay look very compelling. The one thing that I always hear from people that criticize the first game is not so much the story or the narrative or the character development or the world building, but rather that the gameplay is on more of the shallow side. And I can see certain respects of that. I don't totally agree with that sentiment, but it seems as though this footage really capitalizes on the fact that Naughty Dog has learned from those criticisms, but also really just building upon what they've done with their previous games, right? Every single note from the first game, Left Behind, Uncharted 4, and even Lost Legacy all have some elements in this footage where you're seeing Ellie just be able to do so much more, right? Not only are these areas so much more open, like Uncharted 4 and Lost Legacy, not only are some of the core values of The Last of Us in there, like crafting, sneaking around, that's all built upon with like the dog sniffing you out, or, you know, going into low grass and being completely prone. There's verticality, elevation, right? You're climbing things, you're jumping, you can toss ropes down to climb down objects. There's just so much more openness to the game, and so I'm really liking what we see so far. And then there's also the point in this footage where there was a PlayStation Vita. Ellie sneaks up on an enemy, they're playing a PS Vita, and you can even hear that they're playing Hotline Miami. and then you know, Ellie kind of does her thing, and well, you know, that's what you get if you're a PlayStation Vita owner in the apocalypse. But I love that. I just love that. I freaked out. I was more pumped. I know this is sad, but I was more pumped about that than seeing things like Ellie swim or all the gameplay elements we saw prior. Oh man, Twitter had a field day with that one, but yeah, there was a Vita in there and that was so cool. But it does very much appear as though a lot has been addressed from the first game. And gameplay is so hard to judge without trying it yourself. You know, it's not like a movie where it's static, where you can say it's markedly better than the previous movie. You do have to play it to feel out that gameplay loop and see if it really is more enjoyable for you. But it does appear as though a lot more is going on here, and that should make it a lot more enticing and more thrilling for people that may have found the first game very shallow. And reviews for the game, the embargo date has been revealed, so people are playing the game. The embargo will lift June 12th, 12 a.m. PDT, so that's a week away from the game actually coming out, which is usually an indicator that the publisher is confident in the game's quality, so they're expecting good reviews. That's just always, it's not a guarantee, of course, but that is something that we can look at and say, okay, Sony's confident in this game. Otherwise, we sometimes see publishers have embargoes, well, pretty much day of, which says that they might not be completely confident in the product that they're putting out. But it will be such a huge conversation once the reviews hit, once the game's out. I don't even really know if that conversation is going to look any better than what it looks like right now with the leaks present and what people don't like about the leaks. But that will probably be something that we'll also take part in once the game does drop and everybody can play it and socialize about it. Now on to the PlayStation 5 news. That reveal is very, very soon in all likelihood, but first we'll start with how this week really played out, where the main PlayStation website, the product page for PlayStation 5 updated. It wasn't a huge update, but basically it listed a few, you know, marketing paragraphs or sentences really about, you know, the lightning speed, stunning games, breathtaking immersion. So the site's really starting to play into the marketing aspect of PlayStation 5. This is really one of the first times where we've seen a sentence try and say things like, harness the power of a custom CPU, GPU, and SSD. Like, this is marketing stuff, right? So one of the first times we've really ever seen a somewhat decent push at them trying to actually sell this thing, because it is so weird how they've really approached it. But the big report, of course, is Jason Schreier, now of Bloomberg, Takashi Mochizuki of Bloomberg, ran with a story that the reveal event is June 3rd, so that is a Wednesday. I believe Jeff Grubb also updated his summer games mess with the soon PlayStation event smashed in between the 2nd and the 4th. Remember, he previously had pegged it from the 4th, and he had to dial back, stating that it was moving around. Jason Schreier even clarified that here's the obligatory, that the event could still move around, but considering how close we are, it's Friday right now, and I'm even as I'm filming this right now, I'm worried that I will upload this and the event will be made official, because this video, of course, is filmed Thursday night, edited and uploaded throughout Friday morning until it's ready for 8 a.m. EST. So I hope that doesn't happen, but if it does, we'll be doing a video pretty much right away, doing some predictions and whatnot. But so this is very soon. If they follow the formula from the state of plays that we previously had, right, then Monday would be the announcement of this event coming up, which would take place on a Wednesday. We are very close. I mean, even if it isn't the 3rd, it'll be a few days later or the following week, because we're there, right? We're going into June. This is the E3 time frame, so I know people are impatient, but it will be happening very soon. In fact, we should be seeing hardware soon as well. Now, I don't know if it will be during this showcase of games, because that is what we're hearing, is that it's a showcase of games. So maybe they'll have like a 30-second buzz, you know, cinematic that shows the console design, or they'll just drop it on the PlayStation blog. But that should also be relatively soon, so they can avoid leaks, because manufacturing for it needs to start very soon, much like how we never saw the PS4 original design of 2013 leak. This will be the same case, where Sony does have to show it on their own terms before it leaks. The PS3 Slim, PS3 Super Slim, the PS4 Slim all leaked. The PS4 Pro did not, and that's a pretty notable one, because the PS4 Pro was announced at the same time as the PS4 Slim. Now, why did the Slim leak and the Pro didn't? Because the Slim was already built, manufactured, and sitting in warehouses, and it was available like a week after that event took place, that live stream, whereas the Pro was still a few months out, being available in October, so they had a decent lead on that one there. Now, we also learned a pretty interesting fact about this potential reveal from Alana Pierce. Alana Pierce, of course, previously of IGN. On Kinda Funny Games Daily, she was quoted as saying, "Sony has tried to do presentations already this year, and I know this from developers who were supposed to be part of those presentations, but didn't because for some reason, somewhere in the Sony hierarchy, they were very obsessed with the idea of having a very, very professional stream rather than something previously recorded." She went on to state, so they weren't willing to do anything outside of a massive studio with a crew of like 25 to 30 people, which, for those devs who were planning to have their games revealed at those certain streams, was very frustrating. PlayStation just wasn't having that at-home quality stuff. They were refusing to do it, so I feel like maybe this is actually going to be huge. Now, this runs pretty well in parallel to what we heard from Jeff Grubb, where he was stating that for certain third parties, Sony was limiting what games were going to be shown because they wanted to avoid situations where they put a disclaimer saying, hey, this is PC footage that's going to be optimized for PS5 or running, this is targeting PS5-like visuals. They want to avoid that, so they're curating the amount of games that are shown, kind of implying that it might be less games, but it could be more substantial games. The clips could be longer. Maybe they're avoiding cinematic trailers and, teasers, things like that. It could be a more meaningful show in that you see more gameplay, longer gameplay clips, but also now we're hearing from bigger studios as well, so not necessarily smaller teams. And this actually also plays into what I mentioned at the start of the show, the PlayStation Plus lineup. We got Call of Duty World War II and Battlefront 2, Star Wars, right? Now, the reason why we probably got those is because if this event comes up June 3rd, we are almost certainly going to see the next Call of Duty during this show, whether you like it or not. Sony has had marketing rights and the exclusive map pack deal, timed exclusivity for all that content for this whole generation, and they're going to continue to do so. That partnership doesn't look like it's ending. So the next Call of Duty is probably going to get shown at this event. But also, Jason Schreier had retweeted from the formation, or the recent Twitter account of Motive Montreal, and he basically low-key just revealed that they're doing a Star Wars project, and so maybe that will also be at the PlayStation 5 showcase of games as well. Either way, whenever we get an official announcement of a confirmed date for this event, we'll do a predictions, expectations type video, what we should see, things like that. And then when the date comes, we will of course do another video recapping all the games that we saw, impressions, complete coverage like we often do. I don't stream these events, but I do like to do a video immediately right after, and we cover it all there. Another video that we'll be doing actually is I've been keeping a running tally of every single confirmed PS5 game so far. I know the PlayStation Magazine UK just put out their issue that's readable, that they have a running list of like 38 games, but going over it, some of them are not completely accurate and not confirmed. I've got a confirmed list, so after this event where we get more games announced, we'll do a showcase with all the current trailers for these games, a description of them, what you can expect, release dates, and that'll be a video as well once we're over this event. But like I said, this will be the best resource, the best place for PlayStation 5 news and updates. Now moving on to our next news story, we have a new patent filed from Sony Interactive Entertainment, and this one is for a wireless charging adapter and charging base for your controller. So, this is something where I see a lot of people often theorize, wouldn't it be so cool if our controllers had wireless charging, or if PS5 could do this? Well, the problem with that is inductive charging needs a flat surface against a flat surface. Controllers are complex shapes. Doesn't really work. It's not very practical, especially to bake it into the controller or do something like this where you have to make an adapter, and that's very much what this is. And you can see that the adapter would add considerable bulk to the controller to make sure that it's flat, so this might ruin the way that your hands rest on the controller. We already have charging docks anyway. The only thing this is really solving is that you don't have to line up any sort of ports before you dock it into a charging station. And of course, if you just had a larger battery on these things, you don't really ever find yourself in a place where you'd want to just rest it and charge it that way. But in defense of this patent, it references key adapters, which means it could add back buttons to the controller, so you're adding two features for the price of one. So that does make a better case for it, but I say just do the back buttons. Don't add that much bulk to the controller. I think people like this idea in practice, but then when they see what it would look like on a controller if it's a real product, not worth it. Next up, we had some very interesting DLC announced for the game Dead by Daylight. Pyramid Head returns from Silent Hill fame coming to this game, and surely this is quite coincidental given all the rumors that we've had regarding, a Silent Hill reboot on PlayStation 5, Sony exclusivity, all that stuff happening, right? But this is, for right now, just a small little piece of DLC content. It's just surprising to see this character finally come back from a franchise that's been left dormant for quite a few years, so obviously people are trying to connect the dots here. Actually, as a jumping off point from this news story, we also have the famous Japanese manga artist Suehiro Maruo, who we talked about previously. He had kind of teased on Instagram the Silent Hill imagery. Well, now he posted another thing on Instagram stating, "We just started." So something is awry, and if all goes according to plan, if everything falls into place, we might find out what this actually is in just a few short days, or really, under a week. If there was ever a place for this mystery Silent Hill game to get announced, that would probably be the place to do it if it's a PlayStation 5 exclusive. Now, we also have a minor update for Ghost of Tsushima. If you remember, we were talking about the potential difficulty of the game, and that actually, from the way that samurais are really presented and how you could easily die from one swing of the blade, it works that way for enemies, but also for the protagonist, Jin. And if that might have led you to think that the game might be too difficult, well, Sucker Punch did recently confirm that the game does still have difficulty settings like you'd expect, so you can adjust it based on how you really run into it. They don't want to make it too difficult, but they do have a level of challenge provided if you want to jump into the game right away to play it in that manner. Which is good, of course. I think it's always an expectation that there is difficulty levels, but not every game actually offers that, surprisingly. And so when you see something like this, it almost maybe was assumed by some people that, hey, maybe this game has one setting all the way through where it's just meant to be played in one particular way, and that's the way Sucker Punch says. But no, it will have difficulty settings right off the bat. With all of that out of the way, it's time to get to Let's Talk Plus, the weekly Let's Talk PlayStation giveaway where one of you could win a $10 PlayStation Network code. I would like to congratulate this viewer right here. I will be contacting you very soon via email or Twitter. If you would like to win a $10 code, it's very easy. Follow the link down below. We do this every single week on Let's Talk PlayStation. Supporting this channel a number of ways can gain you an entry, and I'll announce the winner next week because I'm trying to pay for your games. Those are all the news stories that I want to talk about with you all. Our Tuesday video was the PlayStation 5's UI, 17 improvements and features that I'd like to see over PlayStation 4. This is one area where I think we'll probably be waiting on the UI longer than this event coming up. In terms of Sony's pipeline, this is probably further down the road, so we shouldn't expect it at this games showcase. That's why I want to talk about it this Tuesday. We still got some buffer there. But other than that, this coming week is going to look much different. We're going to see how it unfolds, of course, and we'll probably get 2 videos, assuming it plays out the way that it does, where we'll predict, do some expectations, and then go over the actual event at hand. It's very exciting. I can't wait. I know we've been talking about all this stuff for so long, and the way that it's sounding, Sony's approaching this event in a very good way, where it's a lot of gameplay, a lot of footage of these games actually running on PlayStation 5. So the way that it sounds, I'm hoping it's as good and as big and as monumental as it's made out to be. But, that of course remains to be seen. But until then, that concludes this week's episode of Let's Talk PlayStation. I'm Ryan Benecki. Thank you all so much for talking with me, and I will see you very soon on Monday or Wednesday, but also Friday for the next Let's Talk PlayStation.